There are a ton of storylines entering A-Day, but the biggest one probably doesn't have anything to do with what's going on the field.
Freezing temperatures are likely for several hours inland and a few hours closer to the coast.
Yes.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's normally a Charlie Tuesday, not today. He ditched us because he's at the Masters. Button that top button, Darrell Dapprich joining us, Montgomery radio vet and regular here at Locked On Auburn. There's so many storylines, Dap, going into A-Day. Obviously, it's Hugh Freeze's first one as Auburn's head coach, and there's a lot of excitement that comes with that, and a lot of position battles that we talked about yesterday that we're going to be watching. But you and I were talking before we clicked record, Darrell, like the biggest storyline could be stuff that's happening off of the field. The total revamp on the recruiting front that we've seen is nothing short of exceptional. And you're seeing 4-star kids from all over the place saying, I'm going to be at Auburn for A-Day. And just the amount of energy. And there's a lot of dudes that are close, that we think are close to popping. Maybe you see some positive momentum off of the field Saturday while they're at Jordan Hare Stadium.
Yeah, that's the storyline, is leading up to A-Day. The recruiting momentum that it seems Hugh Freeze is getting is very, very important because two reasons. Number one, you touched on it. If you can bring recruits to A-Day and they get the kind of experience that is that Auburn experience, and they feel it and they feel the love, and so then they go ahead and commit, A-Day becomes a lot more important than just a glorified scrimmage. They're part of something, part of the game day experience. Second of all, you want to build a recruiting class that makes people want to come out and see that particular player that was highly recruited a year ago in his first time in an Auburn helmet and jersey. Even though it's A-Day, you get to put a name with a jersey with the face, basically see them live and in person. So if there's all this hoopla about Walker White, when he comes out and starts spinning it, his first A-Day game, it becomes relevant. It doesn't become relevant unless you get some studs and some names of guys you want to see on the field, and the first opportunity to see them on the field, A-Day. That's why I think that's a really important storyline.
I'm with you, and we've seen the trend continue where I wasn't able to go to practice yesterday, but reading several notes and reports of it, it's like during stretching, what's Hugh Freeze doing? He's talking to high school coaches that are in attendance, and it's like the guy doesn't stop. The guy's constantly thinking about it. And I think you may see a culmination of some of that Saturday at A-Day. We'll give the specific guys later in the week when John Garcia joins us to talk about that. The next thing I'm looking at, Darrell, is this new format, which I don't know if there's a perfect way to do an A-Day format. I just don't think that it's kind of a weird thing unless you're just going to mix the roster up and do 2 evenly matched teams, which I don't think makes sense from a practice standpoint. So they're never going to do it because I think we forget what this is, right? This is one of the 15 practices. And if it doesn't make your team better, it's dumb. There's no point to do it. And so the new format that Hugh Freeze is rolling out there is sounds like they're going to give the defense a certain amount of points. And it's like, all right, offense, can you catch up with them in the allotted time, the allotted snaps, and the allotted opportunities that they have? I haven't seen what that number is going to be, Darrell, and maybe in a second we can have some fun with what that number should be. I've got a number in my head. I'm curious if you do as well. But your general thoughts on this format. My gut reaction is I like it, but I don't really know if it matters that much.
I like it because it's something different, and it's building a culture of coming from behind and urgency.
Oh.
So from an offensive standpoint, in basketball, they can run that drill where you've got the ball with 8 seconds left, go, right? In football, it's that 2-minute drill. You've got the ball at the 20-yard line, go score. I like this because it's not just one possession that you're focusing on coming from behind. It's scoring. If there's anything you want to do in an RPO system, is score a lot of points as fast as you can. This format kind of practices that and puts you in that mold of how much urgency, the urgency of having to score. It's not sitting on leads like what happened in the LSU games under Gus Malzahn, where, look, at some point your defense has to hold a lead. I get it. I think Hugh Freeze and Ron Roberts have confidence with this secondary and with this defensive line, they're going to hold some leads. But in case they can't, we got to be able to score when we need to score and put games away, and that means even coming from behind. That's why I think this format practices that. It simulates that. It's hard to simulate urgency. It is in practice. This is as close to it as I think you can get.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I hadn't really thought of that angle, but I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, and just if you're a quarterback and you see the number in my head is 27.
That's you like Jarquez Hunter. That's why.
I do like Jarquez Hunter.
Yeah.
I do like Jarquez Hunter a lot. I think he's gonna be great. But I think 27 is the number that's sticking up in my head. It may be lower than that.
Mine was 23, which is really weird. Such a weird number. But you know what it gave me? 3 touchdowns, and then my man McPherson coming out and kicking the field goal to give us the lead. Strange,
Or he goes out there 8 times.
Shoot, if that happens, I don't care. 24 is 24, just like in blackjack, 21 is 21. I don't care how you get there. Let's get there.
I get it. But yeah, I think if you're a quarterback and you're TJ or Robby or Holden and you look up at the scoreboard and it's 23-0 or 28-0 or whatever the number is, 20-0, how do you respond to that? Because ideally your quarterback, something gets triggered in here where it's like, okay, let's go, or it's going to be too late. It's time to start playing football. And that's what the greats do, right? That's what obviously Tom Brady comes to everybody's mind, all of his clutch ones, but even guys that have excelled at the college level, like Nick Marshall, there was something about Nick Marshall where it's like when he needed to turn it on, there was running out of time. And you talk about urgency. It's when those guys played their best ball. Is that dude on the roster right now? I don't know. We haven't seen it yet. But maybe there's a chance they can turn it on. So I think that was a great point, Darrell. And
it's why you see, even in the NFL, so many offenses pick up life and get really prolific when they go hurry up, no huddle.
Yeah.
They go normal for like a half, and then the last 2 minutes they go hurry up, no huddle, or the second half they do that and they start lighting up the scoreboard. I just think that's because of the urgency. You get sharper, you hone in.
All right, let's talk about, can the trenches pass the eye test? Does it look different than it did a year ago on Saturday? We'll touch on that in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. The Built March Madness bracket is still going on. You can go to builtmarchmadness.com to vote for your favorite. They're giving away a bunch of stuff. 50 Locked On listeners will win a free box of Built. And then one lucky Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription to Built and have Built's best bars and puffs delivered straight to your door. Darrell, you've been seeing Built bars and Built products. You used to see them on the shelves, and now it seems like you're just missing out every time you go to the grocery store.
I'm going to major grocery stores, excited to see them. I stock up on them, and the last 2 times I've whiffed. And so I actually did something I normally don't do. I asked to see the manager. And I just asked him, I said, dude, when he goes, we are having a hard time keeping him in. He said, I've got another order coming in. I gave him my cell number, so he should be hooking me up because it is a great afternoon. If I got a sweet tooth, I fire one of those bad boys up, and it gets rid of the craving. It really does.
Yeah, and it's only 100 calories, not
a
few hundred. Yep. Totally. So head over and get a chance to win some. BuiltMarchMadness.com. The trenches, Darrell, I've talked about this before when reporting on practice, specifically with the offensive line. We don't know if this is all going to come together or not. It's impossible to know until really August, and then when they start playing games in September. It's impossible to really know. But from an eye test standpoint, it really feels like this offensive line is better than the offensive lines we've seen for the last half decade. It just feels that way. They pass the eye test. And so for me, and it sounds like you agree, a big storyline is, can they pass the eye test on Saturday? Both sides of the football in the trenches, offensive and defensive line. That's going to be a big part of this.
We've heard so many times, I mean, ad nauseum almost, that, in the SEC, you've got to control both lines of scrimmage. It starts in the trenches. Throw out all the cliches, we've heard it. And Auburn, in my opinion, has had to do a lot with smoke and mirrors over the years, with a patchwork offensive line on two reasons. Number one, I think the talent level wasn't there, and then there was always a lot of injuries. What I'm so very, very excited and optimistic about this offensive line is the presumed starters came together so quickly, right? It was like, this is the best five, boom. This is who we're going to go with. There wasn't this shuffling in and out, try this, try that, patchwork and rotating different players to get a starting lineup tells me there's question marks. When you decide on a five right away, now we don't know how it's going to play out on the field, but at least there's continuity going into practices, going into A-Day, going into summer workouts. I think there's that cohesiveness, and the decision that they made so quickly is very, very encouraging to me. And on the defensive side, you kind of knew who was coming back. You kind of had your veteran starters, but the new dudes, the transfer guys that are going to be able to plug and play and provide depth and rotation and not much of a drop-off, that's why I think that's really, really important in dominating both lines of scrimmage.
Yeah, and like, we know that Avery Jones is good. Like, he was good at East Carolina. Like, we know that he's good. We know that Gunnar Britton can be good at Western Kentucky. We've seen it. He had a few games that didn't grade out well, but the big picture, it's solid. Can he do it against SEC players? Can Avery Jones do it against SEC players? Can Dylan Wade do it against SEC players? That to me is going to be fun, right? What do those guys look like against Keldrick Falk, against Elijah McAllister, against Marcus Harris? Those are going to be individual one-on-one battles, because that's stuff that translates, right? There's always this stuff about how much can you get out of A-Day? And I think the biggest thing, and I say this every year, Darrell, when you watch A-Day, you want to watch guys that are in one-on-one matchups, because those guys are fighting for playing time. They're fighting to not get embarrassed. They're fighting for the favor of their position coaches, their coordinators, and their head coach. They're fighting for all of this. One-on-one battles is where you can tell, okay, this matters. If Keionte Scott constantly locks up dudes in man coverage, that matters. Keionte Scott passes the eye test. He's a good player. What to look for in the trenches is these one-on-ones, not double teams. Not interested in that. That doesn't matter. That's a scheme thing. But just as far as ability, when Marcus Harris is lined up at defensive end on Dylan Wade and has a one-on-one blocking session, and does Jarquez Hunter, does he find the next space because Wade opened it up for him, or does Marcus Harris get him in the backfield? That's the type of stuff that you've got to look at on Saturday to say, okay, these are the players that we need to watch and follow over the course of summer and then fall camp.
I'm going to be really interested in Jones versus Jones. Avery Jones and Jayson Jones. I think that's going to be a stalemate, and I don't think anybody needs to read anything into that. You should come away from that really optimistic when neither guy gets the upper hand, because to me, it shows how really good Avery Jones is and how really good Jayson Jones is. So that's a battle that I'm really looking forward to watching, a one-on-one battle as well.
That's right. That's right. Darrell, you've talked a ton about the upside of defensive backs. What's your storyline there as we watch this team kind of go at each other on Saturday?
They have a chance to be elite, a dominant secondary that locks you down and is a no-fly zone per se. And people can say, well, how do you know? They haven't even taken a snap yet. Well, I know because there is some history there with some of the players that are coming back. Sure. And how well they played last year. The DJ James, Keionte Scotts, Jalen Simpson, once he moved to safety, he looked like a different player. Puckett, Pritchett. Now you throw Lee into the mix. Look, it has a potential to be really, really special. And in the SEC, if you can control people's air raid attacks and their passing attack and put them in situations where they have to run it and make them a little more predictable. I also like the fact that you can leave these guys on an island if you blitz. If you get to the quarter, I'm just going to tell you right now, if Auburn's able to get to the quarterback with that defensive line, the way I think how good they're going to be, and not have to bring safeties and DBs and linebackers, and you let 4 or 5 guys sit back in the secondary, Auburn's going to have a lot of turnovers and really be on the high end of a really good plus-minus, which to me directly equates to wins.
Yeah, I am not as confident in the pass rush as you are, but I hope I'm wrong. Hope I'm wrong. But yeah, number 4, DJ James, number 3, Kayin Lee, and number 6, Keionte Scott. Those are the guys to watch in the secondary. Keionte Scott is not number 6. What number is Scott? I am totally blanking on this right now. Yeah, he is 6.
He is 6, yeah.
He is 6. There we go.
But so is a receiver.
Javaris Johnson is 6 as well. That's right. That's right. All right.
When the punts, it's very confusing because I can't figure out which one is which.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right. And then quickly, let's talk quarterback just for 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of storyline you're looking at with quarterback, or are you in the camp of like, this may not matter until after the May transfer portal?
Both. I want to see, because any quarterback's just an injury away from the backup playing.
Sure.
So even if the quarterback's not on campus, you better have guys ready to play that could fill in. I want to see 2 things. I want to see Geriner's supposed, alleged increase in accuracy, his improvement there. Mm-hmm. And I know now that this is an RPO, I'm really looking forward to watching Robby run an RPO, which I think he's designed for, naturally gifted for, and what he does at the mesh point, reading the defense, when to pull it, when to put it, give it to the running back, and then throwing off that. Does that, like with Nick Marshall, he wasn't the most accurate downfield passer, but he got better passing because of the RPO, the speed, the tempo. And if they can get receivers separated, what's that look like in an RPO when our quarterbacks are able to get the ball out and get it to them?
Well, and he's kind of the opposite of that, though, right? Where Robby's kind of good beyond 20 yards, but his short stuff has not been great. And most RPO stuff is going to be kind of within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Is that, though, because the mechanics that he was practicing under was drop back and pass and footwork as opposed to sliding along horizontally along the line of scrimmage and being able just to make a quick hit and not have to think about it like you do in the pocket? I don't know. I think mechanic-wise, Phil Montgomery will get a hold of him and put him in situations along the line of scrimmage in an RPO where his body positioning may be better suited for more accuracy 20 yards in.
I hope so. I hope it's that case.
Marshall would have been very accurate dropping back in the pocket and having to do reads either. That's just not the kind of dude he is.
He did it more in 14 though, and was good. But I think Nick Marshall's just so much better than Robby is. I don't know. All right, Darrell, I want to get your thoughts. Who are your 3 players you're most excited to watch on Saturday? We'll touch on that in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. I want to encourage folks to join the Locked On Auburn Discord. It is free. All you have to do is click the link in the episode description down below. Darrell, who are you most excited to see on Saturday?
Rivaldo Fairweather.
Great.
And, I picked this before I heard what Hugh Freeze said at the press conference before practice today, that he was our most consistent pass catcher so far through the spring. As a tight end, he has been the most consistent. So I'm really excited to see him, his body size, how much of a freak he is, wanting to watch him catch balls from the tight end position.
Rivaldo Fairweather wears number 13. I can't wait for a lot of folks to get to see him for the first time. That's going to be, I think a lot of people are going to be very impressed with how well he moves, and just wait for him to jump for a ball. And it's amazing how long he stays in the air for. So yeah, Rivaldo Fairweather, number 13. I love that. Who is your number 2 that you're most excited to see on Saturday?
I have really, this has been somebody that's kind of building, Robert Woodyard. Woodyard. I've heard a lot of good things in the last week about him and his emergence on the linebacking corps. So I'm very interested, and my curiosity is piqued to watch whether or not he has elevated himself into a potential starting role. If he has come a long way, and that's why I'm really excited to see if the buzz that's been around him the last week or 2 is warranted. Body type, how he moves along the line of scrimmage, tracks the running back, that kind of thing. I'm really looking forward to watching him play.
I'm curious to see if he's a starter, right? Darrell Woodyard wears number 17. I expect him and Steiner to be the first two linebackers out there on Saturday. I think Austin Keys may also get a chance to be a starter. He wears number 12, but that's a position group that's fascinating because we've just seen different dudes line up there consistently. I mean, you're seeing the same wide receivers. You're seeing the same defensive line. You're seeing the same offensive line. You're seeing different linebackers every time we go to practice. So that one's going to be really, really telling as far as, okay, these are the first two guys out there.
Absolutely. And if that is, then they have emerged and they have grown in the offseason. And that's, to me, that's very, very encouraging.
Your third player you're most excited to watch on Saturday?
Kayin Lee. Lee has been a lot of buzz about him.
Yep.
His length, the way he covers, the way he locks down. We know what DJ James is. We know what we have in him. I think we know what we have in Pritchett. So he's the X factor. And if he can come in and play a little nickel or, be the third corner in a rotation and come in obvious passing situations, I'm really looking forward to what he can do as a freshman and what kind of impact he can make. I've heard a lot about him.
Yeah.
And now it's time for me to lay my eyes on him and see if all the hype is really generated, it's worthy.
Yeah, no, I think you and a lot of Auburn folks getting to see number 3 out there for the first time, Kayin Lee. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. Darrell Dapprich, how can people check out everything you've got going on right now?
Monday mornings, Ben Taylor, Auburn Opelika this morning at 7:10. At 5 p.m. on Mondays at the Final Drive on WNSP. Really enjoying that, talking with those guys. And then midweek on the Max Roundtable. So kind of talking about all different things. And I actually will have an opportunity in the future with some other maybe little Texas A&M action. See what's going on there. So we'll
all over the SEC. I love it.
Auburn. That's right.
I love it. You can find all my written work at auburndaily.com, and we will see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.